Hey there YouTube, it's Monday night, and we're still dealing with all the fallout from the biggest party of the summer. Astonishingly, this episode not only serves as the Raw after SummerSlam, but also the go-home show for Payback this Sunday. We're back in the Thunderdome, and ready for action. As always, before we begin, if you found me and enjoy my content, help get this channel up and running by doing all the normal YouTube stuff. Like, share, and subscribe. You can also talk to me over on Twitter at PSUOptimus, or check out my fledgling Instagram at WrestlingOptimus. Now, for a review and some fantasy booking, let's take it over to the action figures. They finally got the timing of the intro down as they bring up the audience screens and crowd noise immediately after setting off the opening pyro, all while the theme song blares. Oh, and there's Thunderdome branding all around the arena. This actually felt epic again. Now that's how you open a Monday Night Raw in the pandemic era. Out comes the WWE Champion Drew McIntyre. In kayfabe, this is his first look at the Thunderdome. So he says, "Yes, what a difference! My God, this is awesome!" I still feel bad that he was robbed of having his title-winning WrestleMania moment in front of a live audience. It was so strange not hearing the cheers of fans when he conquered the Beast. So to see his excitement being back in front of a crowd, even a virtual one, was great. Drew says Randy might be wondering how he got beat last night. Well, Drew is hungrier and works harder. He also knows what it's like to go through hard times and be desperate. Normal people know that feeling, but Randy doesn't. Even though he's great, he's been coddled and protected his whole life. McIntyre points out that he didn't even win last night with his finisher. Instead, he beat the supposed greatest wrestler ever with a wrestling maneuver. So, if Orton wants another shot, that's fine, because this time, Drew will be glad to send him to Claymore country. As McIntyre soaks in the adulation of the Thunderdome crowd one last time at the top of the ramp, he's taken out from behind by the Viper. They brawl back into gorilla position where a slew of officials are unable to prevent Randy from delivering 2 punts to the champion's head. After the break, Drew refuses medical attention. Personally, I'm already bored with this feud, but I also don't know who else Drew can face. The next biggest heel on Raw is probably Bobby Lashley, and rumor has it he's trying to take on Brock Lesnar next, who McIntyre's already beaten. I guess there's Seth, but for my fantasy booking, I think this is where you need to reveal who's in Retribution, and have the leader be a credible heel threat from NXT like Dominik Dijakovic. Drew can be the savior of WWE and maybe down the road even play that off Seth's Messiah gimmick. Generic interview girl confronts Nia Jax backstage. Nia claims that she apologized to Pat Buck and got reinstated. Shayna Baszler interrupts, and for some reason Nia offers her unsolicited assistance in Shayna's match tonight. Shayna makes a crass fat joke disguised as a Haystacks Calhoun reference. They call each other ugly. Moving on. As the golden role models come out, you can cut the tension with a knife. Sasha keeps her distance and stares daggers at Bayley's SmackDown Championship every chance she gets. After Shayna's entrance, Nia comes to the stage to watch the match and pretend she's intimidating. Baszler methodically works over the arm that Bayley damaged at SummerSlam for most of the match. Sasha continues to interfere on her best friend's behalf in between caressing Bayley's title. When Shayna is tossed to the outside, Nia can't resist and attacks her, causing the disqualification. They brawl into the ring. Banks and Bayley snicker as they try to slink away. When they encourage Shayna and Nia to attack each other, it backfires though, and instead they turn their sights on the champs. Kevin Owens is backstage in a black tie this time. He's trying to find Aleister Black and invite him to be his guest on the KO show tonight. Owens finds the literal door that Aleister is always asking people to knock on and awkwardly extends an invitation. We get the first ever KO show in the Thunderdome. Owens mentions that we haven't seen Aleister Black in a while, and they have a common enemy in Seth Rollins. Aleister comes out with his eye wrapped up and hesitates when he sees the ring steps. Kevin defends Seth, claiming that he isn't acting like himself. Aleister fake collapses, then hits Owens with a black mass and marches out. Banks and Bayley tell Charlie Caruso they weren't running, they were just protecting Sasha for her match later tonight, where she's going to win back the Raw Women's Championship. We get a fatal 4-way for the 24/7 championship between Shelton Benjamin, Cedric Alexander, Akira Tozawa with his ninjas, and R-Truth, who somehow manages to get the virtual audience to chant "What's up?" in time with his music. Impressive. The match is a short, ridiculous affair. Tozawa uses ninja power to avoid getting tossed out, then the ninjas hold back Benjamin as Tozawa rolls up R-Truth for the win. Shelton beats up the ninjas as Tozawa runs away with the belt. If they're finally going to start using him consistently, I need to get a Cedric Alexander figure. Either way, I definitely need an R-Truth figure, preferably with a 24/7 belt. Randy Orton comes to the ring and says usually he does what he wants, when he wants, to who he wants. He's also a man of his word, but when he promised to kick Drew McIntyre in the skull and take his title at SummerSlam, he couldn't. Then, Drew has the nerve to offer him a rematch out of pity? No, he's Randy Orton, the legend killer, the greatest wrestler. Bask in his glory. Bask in his glory, for he is limitless. It's Keith Lee with new music that sounds kinda like Brock Lesnar's theme. He's rocking the same vest as an action figure that's in his Twitter profile pic right now, although I'm not sure if it's real or a custom. The Limitless One says that he and Randy haven't been properly introduced. His name is Keith Lee, and he's come here to offer Orton the opportunity to bask in his glory. With all due respect to Drew McIntyre, if Randy doesn't want to fight him, perhaps he'd like to take on Keith Lee. Randy says maybe later. Oh my god, I need a Keith Lee figure so bad. Charlie Caruso finds Zelina Vega, Angel Garza, and Demi the Bachelor Girl backstage. She asks Zelina if she's willing to finally admit that she poisoned Montez Ford. Vega continues to deny it, even as Garza accidentally says, "We all get caught sometimes." Then she storms off to prepare for her match. Demi insinuates that she's been talking to Ivar, so Angel invites her to watch his match. Charlie too. I'm in the process of getting the Andrade Zelina Vega battle pack with his La Sombra mask, but it's still too expensive. It's near the top of the list though. Angel Garza is accompanied to the ring by Andrade and Demi. Out come the Street Profits, and just like at SummerSlam, we get a shower of red Solo cups during their entrance. Montez Ford's Ultimate Warrior impression with the ropes is hysterical every time he does it. In the middle of the match, Ivar comes down to flirt with Demi. He offers her a turkey leg and asks if she'd like to get out of here. They leave, which distracts Angel, but instead of a surprise roll-up, he just becomes unfocused, which is far more realistic. Montez takes advantage and hits the spinning frog splash for the win. Backstage, Nia tells Shayna that earlier got her thinking. They'd make a pretty good tag team, and she just so happens to want the women's tag team championships. Shayna says she'll help, but only if Nia gets off her back while she goes after the title. Nia agrees by poking Shayna in the chest. Baszler agrees by slapping the hell out of Jax. Okay then. The newly reformed Riot Squad teams up with Bianca Belair to take on the Iconics with Zelina Vega next in 6-women action. The match peaks when Bianca finally gets her hands on Vega. She delivers a Beth Phoenix facebuster and an amazing running moonsault, but the Iconics break up the pin. However, once the Riot Squad takes care of that problem, Belair hits the KOD to pick up the victory. I'm seriously shocked that I don't have a Liv Morgan figure yet. I swore I had it, but I guess not. Don't worry, I'm working on that. Apparently we're getting an arm wrestling match later, so Ricochet and Cedric Alexander are testing out the equipment in the back. MVP interrupts and says this is Cedric's problem. He just lost a 24/7 championship match and now he's fooling around. Ricochet tries to stand up for his friend, but MVP accuses him of abandoning Alexander last week. Although Cedric has already said no to the Hurt Business, the offer stands. Either way, there are consequences for people's actions. The world's strongest man, Mark Henry, is in the ring to host the aforementioned arm wrestling match between Bobby Lashley and Apollo Crews for reasons. Lashley cuts a decent promo for a change, saying he's gonna beat Crews now and then again at Payback for the United States Championship. In a somewhat heel move, Apollo stomps Bobby's foot while he's arguing with Henry and quickly slams his arm down to the pad. A furious Lashley attacks but gets kicked in the face. Apollo notices the rest of the Hurt Business rushing out and does a dive on top of them, grabbing his title and getting away yet again. As I've said before, I'm open to getting an Apollo Crews figure, but the entire Hurt Business is on the list of Optimus, which consists of wrestlers I don't like and have no intentions of ever getting a figure for, even if one exists. Charlie is interviewing the Mysterio family. Even though Dominic lost at SummerSlam, Ray is still proud of his performance in his first ever match. Dominic admits he was terrified going into it, but he knew his family had his back. Ray says Seth doesn't realize their family gives them strength. Maybe one day when Seth has a family, he'll understand. Tonight, Ray fulfills his dream of sharing the ring with his son, and he'll be damned if Seth is going to ruin it. Natalya and Lana are in the ring to induct Mickie James into the Hall of Fame. This is apparently their plan to retire Mickie. They play a blank highlight reel and Mickie comes out. She shoves Natalya and chick kicks Lana. Okay, that was a segment, I guess. Bobby Lashley is taking out his frustrations in Raw Underground. He puts some poor jobber to sleep. Dolph Ziggler steps up and proves to be a much bigger challenge until he's thrown into the crowd. Then the Hurt Business feeds him yet another jobber. I guess Randy accepted the challenge because we're getting a match between him and Keith Lee. On commentary, Joe describes Lee as what happens when you strap a rocket to a Sherman tank with wings. Orton is actually selling a lot. Who says he doesn't put over younger talent? They brawl around the ring with Keith doing lots of power spots. Drew McIntyre attacks out of nowhere, causing a DQ, then chases Randy into the back. Afterwards, he tells Charlie Caruso that he doesn't need Keith Lee to fight his battles for him. As he talks into the camera, Orton attacks from behind and gives him a third punt. After the commercial break, Charlie tells us that Drew has a skull fracture and possible brain damage. Well, that escalated quickly. Up next is a rematch for the Raw Women's Championship, except this time it's a lumberjack match. The lumberjacks in this case are apparently here to prevent Bayley from interfering, but she does so anyway. Commentary explains this away as Bayley being one of the lumberjacks. Sasha accidentally takes out Ruby and Liv. Asuka gives chase to Bayley, so she starts to throw her fellow lumberjacks in front of her. After a frog splash, Sasha tells Bayley to get a chair, but she's met by Shayna Baszler. During this distraction, Asuka sinks in the Asuka lock and Sasha taps out for the second night in a row. Two Belts Banks is officially dead. We're told that Drew McIntyre has been taken to a local medical facility as Keith Lee stands by. He says Drew is one of the toughest men he's ever met. He's going to be okay. But he can't say the same for Randy Orton. Cedric Alexander is getting beaten up by Bobby Lashley over in Raw Underground. I think this is what MVP was alluding to earlier about consequences. It's finally stopped after a series of vicious elbows to Cedric's head. Suddenly the Viking Raiders rush in, but the 3-on-2 is too much. Hurt Business stands tall. A while back I saw the old ROH figures for War Machine online, but I'm trying to get the new Viking Raiders figures. Unfortunately, they're too expensive right now, so that might take a while. In our main event, Dominic and Rey Mysterio take on Seth Rollins and Murphy. The Mysterios attack the Messiah and his disciple on the ramp for the bell. Eventually, things get back into the ring and the match starts. Once again, Dominic looks incredible, especially for a rookie. Murphy gets hit with a double 619, but then the lights flicker. Seth uses this distraction to knock Dom off the top turnbuckle and then bolts for the entryway as Retribution invades the ring. They decimate Rey and Dominic while Seth and Murphy look on and laugh maniacally. Are they in cahoots? Retribution poses on the ring apron. There appears to only be 6 of them tonight. 3 men, 3 women. They stand tall, and we see the Raw logo. That was anticlimactic. After watching him in the ring, my fantasy book is to actually team up Dominic Mysterio with Humberto Carrillo. I could watch those two fly around all day, and I think they'd work really well together aesthetically. Plus, Dominic could bridge the slight language gap for Humberto. Unlike Dynamite and SummerSlam, this ending fell completely flat. They need to just pull the trigger on Retribution already. I'm sorry, but the idea of a mysterious group terrorizing a glorified wrestling school and then following that company to a legitimate full-size arena just to play with the lights and break a few things is completely ridiculous, even for pro wrestling. And what the hell are their motivations? They just keep yelling meaningless crap like, "This is our house." Outside of that, this was technically a go-home show, and I think it served its purpose in that respect. I'm somehow still interested in Apollo fighting the Hurt Business. I'll watch the Street Profits fight anyone. Aleister Black's new character is intriguing, and of course, there's the two women's stories, the breakup of Sasha and Bayley, and Zelina poisoning Bianca's man. Plus, Keith Lee's debut was fantastic. However, I'm not so invested in Drew McIntyre getting punted by Randy. I don't care about Nia and Shayna, and Raw Underground still bores me. So, just like SmackDown on Friday, I'd say this was a mediocre episode of TV, but a decent promotion for the pay-per-view. Well, that's gonna do it for another episode of Monday Night Raw. Again, if you've managed to find me and enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button, share this video with any wrestling or action figure fans in your life, subscribe to the channel, and spread the word. You can also talk to me over on Twitter at PSUOptimus. I'll be back tomorrow for AEW reactions from the Garage Pool, so be sure to check that out. But until then, I'll catch you later.